snatch it back and hold it, baby, one more time.
A viewer asked for a deep dive into the THD amplifier in the collections, and I got to admit this is one of the more confusing models I've run across. So this is probably going to be more of a shallow dive. There are many features missing from the real amp in this model, and it's unclear exactly what setup they used to model this amplifier. It is interesting that this is a Class A amplifier, so I'm going to include some links in the description about why they like Class A amplifiers, and I'll even include some links to a different manufacturer that prefers Class AB amplifiers, and you can make your own decision. So let's dive in. THD is a tongue-in-cheek reference to total harmonic distortion, which is an acronym I've run into more when shopping for home stereos. In that context, THD tends to be a bad thing. In the context of guitars, distortion in general tends to be something we enjoy. The sense of humor extends in the bivalve name. In the US, we tend to call the glowing bits of amplifiers tubes, but in Britain, it's more common to call them valves. So this amp has two output valves, or tubes, in the main power section. The visual pun on the front panel shows two aquatic invertebrates that are an example of the group of animals we call bivalves. I think a significant motivating factor for buying the real amp is the fact that it has what is known as a self-biasing feature that allows replacing tubes to achieve different output tones without requiring any electrical engineering expertise. You just pull one set of tubes out and put another set of tubes in. These are listed in the manual as the usable tubes. Likewise, the preamp can use a variety of tubes, including the following. Unfortunately, we have no option in this simulation for specifying different tubes. Wouldn't that be cool? So this is a bit of self-biasing magic that doesn't benefit us virtual amp purchasers. The real amp has a number of differences, which is why I'm not sure what was modeled here. First, the real amp has dual inputs labeled more and less. The more input is for high gain sound and uses both preamp stages prior to the main power section. The less input bypasses the first preamp stage. I've never heard this amp in real life, but I would guess the modeled version we have here is bypassing the first preamp, so we are in the less channel. The real amp also has a cut toggle switch, which by the way is not even mentioned in the manufacturer's manual, a volume, treble, bass, and then an attitude knob. The light bulb noise reduction circuit with a switch to turn it off, the hot plate attenuator, which allows the tubes to run at full power without making everyone in the room deaf. You just turn the attenuation up to keep the sound of fully powered tubes at lower volume. Then a switch that turns off the attenuator in case you do want to make everyone in the room deaf. Finally, a high voltage and low voltage switch, which can also control the aggressiveness of the amp. In our model, the only thing I am confident is the same are the treble and bass knobs. We have a cut knob, which I'm not sure where that came from since the modeled amp has a toggle switch, but with everything at noon, here's how that sounds at various positions. Then we have a reverb switch, which, as expected, adds reverb, but it just adds to my confusion since the real amp doesn't have a reverb knob. We do have a volume knob, but it doesn't seem to change the characteristics of the amp. I wouldn't be surprised if the volume knob is the equivalent of the attenuator knob, but having never used the real amp, I can't be sure. We also don't have an attitude knob, so we can't get a more aggressive or a more controlled sound that way. We do have the light bulb noise reduction circuit, just no way to bypass it. So in some ways, this model is a bit frustrating if you were expecting to learn more about how the THD Bivalve 30 sounds and operates. On the other hand, it is nice to have an example of a strictly Class A amp to listen to. I think this model is worth playing around with. You can do full open chords and full bar chords and maintain some distinction in all those notes that I haven't heard in a lot of amps. With the limitation of what was modeled here, getting more aggressive tones will require using some pedals or rack effects. I'm not sure how helpful this was, but the links in the description will tell you more about the real amp. If you have any insights into this model, feel free to post in the comments, and I'll see you in the next video.